Hey everybody, welcome to String and Story. My name is Holly Ann Knight and it's my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. Now, if you're familiar with my live videos, you're probably thinking, Holly Ann, you're standing up, like what's going on? Bear with me, I want to try something new today because I'm going to be drawing while we are on live together, and this was about the most creative way I could come up with on the fly to be able to move this closer to you guys where you can actually see what I'm doing. So hang in there. As you may know, or may not, if you just happen to be tuning in, we are here to talk about efficient quilting. And what I mean by that is knowing where you're going while you're quilting so you don't have to break thread all the time. So if you're like me, if you just sit down and start quilting on something because you're like, oh, I'm going to do, you know, whatever over in this one section of the quilt. Well, you finish that whatever thing and then you're like, where am I going next? And inevitably I end up having to retrace, like in the ditch or around my stitching, and it's just all kinds of crazy making. So I want to talk to you guys today about how I like to work a traditional grid style layout. I have kind of a regular formula, if you will, that is my preference. There are many ways you could do this. I'm going to show you two different ones that I like as far as where you start and how you move through the quilt. But of course, it's your quilt. You can do whatever you want. So everything here is a suggestion based on my preference and my experience, and I'm so excited that you're joining me. As you are jumping on, make sure that you say hi in the comments, and you may have noticed if you read the caption of this video that we have a question of the day. Today's question of the day is, I would like to know, do you do more quilts in this traditional grid layout, or do you do more quilts in a non-grid layout? So I'm going to let you guys drop down into the comments for a second, and I'm going to pull your comments up on my laptop so that hopefully I can see them because nothing's popping through. Hey Carol, oh good, some things are popping through. And then I will repeat myself briefly in just a moment after everyone kind of finishes jumping on. My camera froze up when I was first getting on, and that's why we were a little bit delayed getting started. But I want to make sure that I've got this open so I don't miss any comments or questions as we are working. Oh, I did miss a question over here. Let me make sure that I'm getting everything. Hey Lydia! And for those of you, well, if you're seeing me say this live, then this probably doesn't apply to you. But for those of you that have kids in school who may be doing pickup right now, this will be available later, and I will explain more about that in just a minute. Let's see. Sarah, let me go tag you on the live video so that you see it. 1 second, guys. I gotta bend down to type. Ooh, let me mute myself or we're going to get weird feedback. Sarah, I hope you find this. It's not letting me tag you, and I will tag you later if you don't find it. Hopefully you are jumping on. If you are on, say hi in the comments so I know you found it. I did see your caption or your comment on the earlier promo post, and I'll make sure you get linked up later. Okay, so we're going to get started with this. Make sure you're answering that question of the day about whether or not you do more traditional grid style quilts or more non-grid style quilts. And everyone who leaves a comment answering that question will be entered to win our 2 Quilting Rockstars vinyl stickers. This is open internationally. I will ship these little suckers anywhere in the world for you. So make sure you answer that question to be entered into just a little giveaway for the fun of it, right? All right, Lydia, let's see what you said. Doing more without the traditional block and sashing layout. Done a lot where all the blocks are bumped up against each other. You know, I do a lot of that too, Lydia, and what we're going to talk about will apply there as well if you're doing not an all-over design, if you know what I mean. So let me start talking through this, and that will make more sense. Make sure I've got the right end of my pen here. So traditional layout, as you know, sashing, block, border, and there's 2 ways to tackle this. My favorite way, well, obviously you could do an all-over design. My favorite way to tackle a quilt like this is I pick 3 motifs. I like to have a motif for the sashing. Spoiler, it's usually wishbones for me. I love wishbones and sashing. I don't know. Anyway, a motif for the sashing, a motif for the block, and when it comes to a motif on the block, how you execute it within the block will vary a lot based on the size of the block, and I'll explain that as we go along as well. And then a motif for your border. Now, if I'm working this on my long arm, I'm going to start towards the upper left, so not all the way up in the border, but down here in the block, and I'm going to work back and forth, right? And you could do that if that's your preference on your domestic. Absolutely no harm in that. In fact, I'll go ahead and show you how that would work. So what I would do, I'd actually start at the bottom of this block. So let's say I'm doing a swirl inside the block. I would swirl, and then I would make sure that I end, even if I have to travel in the ditch, up in this upper corner. So notice I started here, and I worked up towards, hey Kathy, worked up to this upper right corner, and this might be reversed when y'all are watching this. So when I say right, that's my right, like this is my right hand. I don't know if it's flipped for you guys, just so you know. I don't want that to be super confusing if you didn't realize that it's flipped. I do sometimes know my right from my left, not always. Anyway, then I would do my sashing motif. So in this case, let's do wishbones, down to the bottom left of the next block, and then I would repeat. You see how this works? So if you prefer to work your quilts kind of in a left to right, top to bottom kind of way, this is going to be how you do it. And you would continue on, and when you get here, you would travel in the ditch down, and you would do your wishbones across, right? And then travel down and resume. So there's a little bit of traveling, but it's minimal. Hey Mary, let me see what you said. Mary, I just got a sewing machine that quilts, but I've not tried quilting with it yet. Oh, Mary, I can't wait to see how it goes. So have you done free motion quilting before? If not, Intro to Free Motion Quilting, which is my free online class, is coming up on the 14th. If you hop over to my website, stringandstory.com, there'll be a banner to register, like at the top. It's free. So if you haven't done free motion before, jump in there. And if you just want to use that as a way to kind of get your sea legs on a new machine, even if you're familiar with free motion, go for it. So exciting. Mary, you have it. Oh, the whole world is open to you. Okay, so jump over and sign up for Intro on the 14th. Like I said, if you go to my website, stringandstory.com, there's a blue banner at the top that says sign up, and it'll take you to the registration page. And that's going to be like your basics, and we'll go over this some more in that class. That's like your nuts and bolts class. That's why it's free, because I want nuts and bolts to be free, because it should be, right? Yeah, so get signed up for that. Oh, so exciting. Okay, so if you prefer to work top to bottom, left to right, this is how you would go about it, right? And you're gonna, snake your way down this quilt. And if you're working on a long arm, that's how you would do it. And then you would go back and you'd work the border. Now, when I'm working on my long arm, that is how I do a quilt like this. But on my domestic, I prefer to work from the center out. Now, this is where I typically get myself in trouble, because when you think center out, you often will think, I'm going to start in the middle and I'm literally going to spiral out. But if you're trying to do a motif like this that follows the grid of your quilt, that's going to get you in a hot mess really, really fast, right? So if I'm going to be starting kind of generally in the middle of this quilt, I'm actually going to start on the edge, and I'm going to work my way across, and then I'm going to work kind of a mirror image of what we just talked about. Yay, Mary, you signed up. Work down, and then I will work the top half. So let me show you. So I would start here, and I would work my horizontal sashing first. Again, I love a good wishbone in my sashing. You can pick any motif that is your preference for sashing. I mean, you really could do just about anything in here, right? Now, here's the catch with this. You're going to have to think about how your motif might translate from, so here, I started down here. Working this way, my motifs are going to be starting in the upper right. So just keep that in mind, that it's a mirror. And if you want your motif to be going the other direction, you would want to work your quilt upside down, if that makes sense. But for the sake of this, good old swirl. Now, this kind of swirl I would be doing if this were a small block. So the image that I used to let you guys know about this live video, those were 6-inch blocks that I was just doing a single swirl. I'll show you on the next one what I would do if it were bigger and I was wanting to do swirls. So this swirl, what I'm essentially saying is this swirl is representative of whatever motif you choose to work inside your blocks, right? You don't have to use swirls just because I'm using them as the illustration. They're just easy to illustrate because they're my go-to, right? So then instead of working from bottom left to top right, we're working the opposite, top right to bottom left, right? And I might echo and then come down here and then do your wishbones going up And then I'm back at that top right. Now I'm all confused about my right and my left, guys, because we talked about it. And again, whoop, apparently I'm doing ribbon candy now. There we go. And continue on across, right? And then you continue across your sashing again, do the bottom row. And then you would have to break thread here, unless you are doing some sort of border design that easily connects. So you might break thread here, and then come repeat working these top 2 rows. So in this case, I would come back because I want to continue working top right to bottom left so that I don't end up with swirls being mirror image in this particular instance. If you're doing something like a meander or something that is not directional, then you don't have to worry about that as much. But in this instance, it's directional. So this would be set 1, right? I'm gonna do a little bracket off to the side. So I would work this in 2 parts. I would work my bottom half, and then I would work my top half, and then I would work my borders. Hey Winifred, oh, I'm so glad that you're jumping in. Now I mentioned, what if you're not doing one big swirl? So if you're doing swirls just generally as a fill, you know, you're gonna draw or quilt them all over, but you're gonna want to be bearing in mind that you need to end up over here. So see how I did that? I just added some funky echoes to come back over. Does that make sense? This is a flyby, I understand. So you're using this grid work to connect your motifs. So you work down across the sashing, back across the blocks, down across the sashing, then back across the blocks. So you're getting that same back and forth method like you might if you were on a long arm, or if you were working top to bottom, if that's your preference. But we're gonna split it into 2 parts, because then I'm gonna come back up here. And so I work my lower half. I've worked from the center out. Hey, Lori. Guys, don't forget to jump up and answer that question of the day. Do you prefer to work more on a grid or more not on a grid? We're doing a fun little giveaway that everyone who answers that question, I'm awkwardly trying to grab my stickers and it's totally not working. But everyone who answers that question up top as you're hopping on, you'll be entered to win a little set of vinyl stickers. Always a fun thing, right? So that's part 1. Part 2, you're gonna work back across the blocks, down across the sashing, and then back across the blocks. So again, back and forth method, but we're working from the center outward. This would be a grid layout, Kathy, where you've got either blocks with sashing or without sashing, maybe a border, but all your blocks are set out straight. And this is what we think of, you know, as the most traditional quilt layout, where you've got blocks, sashing, border. Most traditional is kind of an ironic statement since we have great evidence of improv and crazy quilts going way back. But you know, when people think of a quilt, you know what I mean? Especially non-quilters, this is very much what they think of when they think of a quilt. Versus blocks on point, improv quilting, very like just non-grid work kind of thing. Maybe not even a regular block layout at all, right? Something with a lot of negative space, all those lovely things that we put in the modern bucket, even though many of those styles date back pretty far. I hope that helps. Hey, Michelle! Oh my gosh, how is Texas? Different from a baby quilt, right? Something that maybe has a panel, etc. I feel like this is often where we all start, you know, with our little 4 patches, and then we sash them, and then we put a border on it, and then we stitch it in the ditch. Like, I feel like that's the classic image of your first quilt. Versus like if y'all have seen, it's actually the cover photo at the top of the page, the Lanterns of Hope quilt. That's just very much not a grid. It's blocks on point, but it's not even all the same block. There's like 15 different blocks in that quilt. So, yes, so that's how I would work center out, doing this on my domestic, and then I would go around and do my border. If you're doing a border design that you can kind of start at any place, like a switchback, for example, when you come across here, you know, and you end down in this corner, if you don't want to break thread even to start your border design, like if you're doing something like a switchback, so you could just jump in right away, switch back your way on around, and end right back at that same place. All of this ideally is to minimize breaking thread and to minimize that confusing feeling of like, where the heck am I going? I don't know what I'm doing. What comes next? I'm stuck in a corner, etc. On Ringo Lake. I love On Ringo Lake. Lots of excellent quilts are laid out this way, Kathy. I've actually been doing a lot of grid quilts lately as well, and I love having kind of a go-to setup. So as I mentioned at the top, my go-to setup for a quilt like this is to work it this way if I'm working on my domestic, so center out. You know, I kind of go middle to bottom, middle to top, or middle to top, middle to bottom, either way, whatever floats your boat. And then I like to have 3 motifs. I like to have a sashing motif, a block motif, and then a border motif. Ta-da! All right, y'all. Let me bump through a couple things. Make sure you're still answering that question. I will leave the giveaway open on that question until sometime tomorrow evening, like 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. How's that sound? So if you're not watching this in real time, today is April 4th, 2018. So 7 p.m. Eastern, April 5th, 2018. Look at that. I put all the official details in there. This lovely little worksheet that I've been working on and showing you guys is available to you if you are part of my newsletter, which if you've taken classes with me, you're on my newsletter. But if you are not sure, or if you're not on my newsletter, so let me back up. I'm saying 2 things at once. If you are on my newsletter, it will show up in your inbox later this evening along with a link to this video. If you are not on my newsletter, there's a blog link in the caption of this video. You can hop over. You'll see kind of a brief overview of what I've been talking about, and there will be a link to this video as soon as we wrap it up, and I can pull the link from Facebook. And there's a little sign up bar about, I don't know, halfway, 2/3 down that post. And just put your email in there. It will get you on the list, and this will come straight to you. This is a really fun way to practice and try out ideas, especially if you use grid layouts a lot. You can practice that motion of moving from the center down and the center up. You can audition designs of different sashing block border combos. If y'all have been hanging out with me lately, you know that my current border obsession is some good old crazy feathers. Been going to town with that. Yay, Lori! Oh, I'm so glad to see you guys answering that question. So this, if you're on my newsletter, will be coming to you. If you're not on my newsletter, hop over to the blog and enter your email to take care of that. Franya and Sarah, I see that you guys are having trouble finding the video, this is where I wish that there was a second me in the room that could go tag you guys, but I'll tag you guys as soon as we wrap up. I'm sorry that seems to be a struggle. I have one more thing. If you have not taken How to Make a Quilting Plan, this is a 2-day online workshop. It is running this weekend, and this is just the very beginning of all the things we dive into. So this concept of knowing what you're going to quilt where and how you're going to move around the quilt, that whole big concept is making a quilting plan, and that's the biggest thing that will take fear and anxiety out of quilting your own quilts. Because if you know where you're going before you ever put the needle through your precious, beautiful quilt top, then you don't have to be afraid. You already know what's going to happen. You've already done it on paper before you've done it on your quilt top. So we're going to be diving deep into this topic. Hey, Sue Marie. Yes, this will be posted later. Don't you worry. You can't find it on your iPad. Oh, that's interesting, Kathy. Well, it'll be coming to your inbox and you can open it on your iPad later, and that'll solve that. But this working on a grid or working on just a basic way to move around your quilt is just the tip of the iceberg of all the things that you can do with a quilting plan. And I'm going to be teaching all of that this weekend. There's a link in the caption of this video to sign up for the class. I would love to see you there. And guys, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to go ahead and give away our sponsor for this week. This week, our workshop is sponsored by Aurifil. So if you take the class and you participate in the class, then you'll be entered to win a 12-count thread box from Aurifil. The collection they choose will be a surprise, but that's a huge gift from them, and I'm so excited to be able to bring that to you guys. So not only can you plan exactly what you want to quilt, you will have brand new gorgeous threads to be using on your quilt if you are our lucky winner. So thanks, Aurifil, for sponsoring this weekend's workshop. I'm super excited. Y'all know I love me some Aurifil thread. Thank you for joining me today, guys. I'm going to intentionally keep this kind of brief for those who are watching later. If you have questions, feel free to be dropping them in the comments. I'll be keeping up with those, and I am hoping to do more videos like this moving forward, so if you have ideas for topics for a little 15 or 20 minute demo, don't hesitate to make requests. Alright y'all, much love and happy quilting, and those of you who have struggled to find this video, I'm going to go tag you right now. Alright, bye y'all.